Okay, so what you're looking at here is the Frankenstein joist, the one that had a bunch of blocking running through it and had they had cut actually in mid-span of the joist. So that one has actually been sistered on this side here. So that's a new sister there. So that's pretty solid now. And what I did after that was I went ahead and decided to go ahead and take out all the blocking underneath the wall there. And that took a lot of work to get that. I've spent numerous hours on that part. It's because there was so much things that were running crisscross with each other and underneath that wall and over to the next joist over, and so the access underneath there, and plus all those pipes in there too, was I had to be careful where I was cutting and make sure I didn't cut into any of the pipes. So I ended up using a reciprocating saw. I used the multi-tool. I had my right angle driver in here. I had all sorts of tools in here just to cut those blocking pieces out. And so I managed to finally get all that out of here. And so my next step really is to go ahead and start adding some blocking back underneath this wall to shore that up. The one issue I did run into is that the wall is actually, so that plywood right there is actually a little bit lower than this joist here. So the bottom of that plywood. And how I checked that was I used my torpedo level. I'm going to grab that real quick so I can show you what I'm talking about. So I used the torpedo level, and how I did that was I put it up against here. And that was one of the main reasons for taking out the blocking, is that I used a torpedo level to check. And I realized that the blocking was too low. And so that I had to make a decision then. I said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and take the blocking out and put new blocking in. And what that probably is going to entail also is notching the blocking slightly if I can't raise this wall in any fashion. Because really the wall is kind of low. It's got a little sag in it, kind of like this in the middle section there. And the outside portions of the wall are actually about 1/16 below the height of this joist, whereas the middle portions are close to 1/8 of an inch or 3/16 of an inch. So if I'm going to put blocking in this area here, I'm going to have to probably notch it if I can't raise that wall any. This is not a load-bearing wall, but again, if I can't raise that wall, I'll have to notch the blocking and when I put it in here. And if I do have to do that, I'll demonstrate what I'm talking about. So that's my next step. So what I'm doing right now is I'm jacking up this wall, this non-load bearing wall that's between the bathroom and the kitchen. And I'm trying to do this as carefully as I can because I want to make sure I don't have any kind of damage in the kitchen from jacking up the floor. I am going to be doing the kitchen later, so I'm not too terribly concerned about it, but I don't want to cause any unnecessary issues if I can. And so I have this floor jack from my garage, and I've got a 2x4 on top of that, and it goes all the way up to that wall right there. So that's the underside of the wall and the subfloor underneath that wall. And so the reason I'm doing that is because I'm trying to bring the height of this here, this underside of the subfloor, bring that height even with the top of the joist that's right above this camera. And so in order to do that, the only way I could think to do that, or what I've read to do that, is to use a jack, a floor jack. So what I was talking about is, you can see with this level, this is a torpedo level. So I put the torpedo level on top of this joist. This is my reference joist that I'm going to be using to screw in my subfloor. And I want to check to make sure that the bottom of this subfloor here is level with the top of the joist. And as you can see there it's almost exactly level. So that's good. So what I'm going to do is leave this in place, this 2x4, and then I'm just going to screw in a blocking piece from the joist underneath this wall back over to this joist here, and then I'm going to gradually let this down. And I'm just going to keep doing that all along this wall here, so I can get some blocking in here and hopefully have everything turned out looking good. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm measuring for my blocking piece that's going to go in right next to this 2x4 here. And one of the things I checked before I took my measurement is to make sure that the joist, this joist here and the joist in the kitchen, that they're straight up and down. Because when I was putting in blocking previously, what I was noticing was that the joists were bowed a little bit, so they would kind of bow like this. And so if that bow is near the bottom, so if it's bowing like this outward near the bottom of the joist, then the measurement obviously near the bottom of the joist is going to be a little more wide than it is at the top. So in order to make sure that this fits correctly, I had to check both of these joists. This one here is straight. It's fairly straight all the way across. There's no bowing or anything like that. The one in the kitchen, though, is kind of doing like this. It's bowing outward. So that tells me that the most narrow point of that joist is going to be near the top. Or the space between this joist and that joist is going to be near the top of the two joists. So what I'm going to do, when I take my measurement, I'm going to feed the tape measure underneath this wall here, over to that next joist over, and I'm going to feed it closer to the top of the joist. And so I've got it fed there. It hit. I can feel it hit there. I've got the base of the tape measure up against this joist here. I'm going to lock it in place, and I'm going to check the measurement. And it looks like it's about 13 1/4. So 10 inches here plus 3 1/4 inches for the base of the tape measure. So that's my measurement for my blocking piece that needs to go in here. Okay, so I've got my 13 1/4 inch blocking piece cut, and I've got my screws preset there. So all I have to do is just reach underneath there with the impact driver. Here's the impact driver here. And just set those screws once I get this blocking in place. I did test fit the piece without the screws in, and I was able to slide it in between the pipe and that 2x4 there. So hopefully I'll be able to get it in with the screws on also. The one thing I want to make sure is that I have this blocking piece right next to this 2x4, because the height here of this subfloor drops off dramatically from this 2x4 over. It drops off pretty quickly. So this bottom of the subfloor here and the top of the joist here are the same height. So that's where I want this blocking piece to go, right next to that 2x4. So how I'm going to do this, I think, is slip it. The pipe has a little bend in it, so I'm going to slip it right below there and try to slide it up here. And I want to get it as close to this as I can. Just kind of slide it in place here. I might have to use a sledgehammer or a hammer just to knock it into place too. Okay, it's in there. Grab the hammer here. Okay, I want to straighten this out. And then I'm going to have to go underneath and hammer it from the bottom so I can get this thing, the top of this flush with that, the bottom of the, flush with the top of this, and also touching the bottom of this subfloor. Okay, it looks like it's fairly close. I'm going to check again from above here. And it looks like it's about right on there. That's just about perfect. Underneath there, there's no gap between the blocking and the subfloor. That feels good there. I'm going to make sure I just get a look, kind of in this area here, I'm going to step back and kind of look towards that direction to make sure it's not doing one of these numbers where it's like this, tilted down over there. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to give it a couple more taps here and then that should take care of it. Okay. Alright, let me grab the torpedo level. This will be one last check. And this will kind of be the basis for any other blocking pieces that I put in, so I can have a good idea of whether this is actually fitting properly or not. So let me grab the torpedo level. And that actually looks pretty good, I think. Let me grab the square. I think one last thing, and what I want to do is check to make sure that this piece is not also turned this way. So again, this is just me being a little anal, so I just want to make sure I get this right. But that's actually pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and sink the screws now. I think that's about as close as I'm going to get it. So I'm going to sink this first screw. And this is a really nice tool. I like this the way it fits in all sorts of weird tight spaces too. So let's see here. Get a good grip on this here. Okay, so I'm going to do this one screw, and then I'm going to go on the other side and do the other screw that's kind of diagonal from that one. Okay, so I'll put these last two screws in. I got one on this side over here, and then second screw right below the first screw on this side here. Okay, so that one's in. So that's just an example of one. That's one of the tougher ones I'm going to put in because it's in between all these pipes here, and also because this is one of the lower portions of the floor where the floor actually sags more than any other part of the floor. So I got that one in. I'm going to move over probably about a foot, put one near this pipe here, and that should bring this whole floor up a little bit. I'm hoping I don't have to go in between here because I'm thinking it may sag in between there just because it's there's a lot of pressure on this floor, on this wall here, just because of all the studs that run this way that are already in place. So I'm hoping I don't have to worry about that. What I may try doing is taking out some of these screws that I put in when I rebuilt this wall here, just to relieve some of the pressure so I can lift that and then sink the screws back in. So we'll see how it goes though.